A cyber attack has been causing chaos at some of Europe's busiest airports this Saturday. Hackers targeted check-in services and electronic baggage facilities at airports in London, Brussels and Berlin. Analysts say the intrusion exposes vulnerabilities in air transport security systems. It's not clear who was behind the attack.
This was the scene at London's Heathrow Airport, Europe's second largest in terms of the number of flights and passengers. Dozens of flights have been delayed or cancelled due to a cyber attack targeting a service provider for check-in and boarding systems. Airline agents are having to use manual procedures for passenger check-ins, baggage drop, and boarding.
This is not common at all. Collins Aerospace, who have been affected by this cyber attack, is one of the biggest aviation and defense companies in the world, employing over 80,000 people. And it's deeply worrying that a company of that stature, who normally have such resilient systems in place, have been affected. This is a very clever cyber attack indeed, because it's affected a number of airlines and airports at the same time. Not just one airport or one airline, but they've got into the core system that enables airlines to effectively check in many of their passengers at different desks at different airports around Europe. This is highly significant.
It was a similar story at Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. Travelers have been advised to check with their airline before leaving home to confirm the status of their flights. And it wasn't clear when operations would return to normal.
Sadly, it's going to affect traffic for most of the day, but that's assuming they get this system back up and running. If they can't work out how to recover this system, it's going to take many days before they're able to get it back online.
Passengers stuck at the airport are complaining that airlines have not been giving them enough information about what's going on and about the lack of staff.
Yeah, no organisation, nobody's told us anything what's going on. We've had to literally cherry pick it ourselves and get as much information as we can, which has been little or nothing.
Some flights are actually taking off after long delays. So for now, what passengers will need in abundance is patience.
Well, let's bring in Marina Miron. She's a military expert from King's College London. Some call this a Europe-wide software issue. If the hackers manage to get into the core system of check-in services for numerous airports, what does this tell you?
Good evening, Ben. It's a serious problem that we are facing because of centralization, and it is done in order to be more efficient across different airports. And it's true not just for airports, but also for other critical infrastructure. So you have one system and the Muse software, which has been targeted, and it is a single point of failure. So in order to create a lot of damage, you just need to target one specific software which manages the check-in and the luggage process. And then you cause a huge disruption that is not only annoying. Of course, we have to think about the cost, and we also have to think about the fact that what if it is a supervisory control and data acquisition software which is used in industrial processes? If that is targeted, will we know how to manually manage, say, the electric power grid if it comes to that? So it shows that there is a weakness in thinking to make things more efficient, makes us actually much more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. So who would want to launch such an attack?
There could be different actors that come to mind. Of course, we have to wait for investigation. Of course, the first on the list would be possibly Russian-affiliated groups or Russian intelligence services, because it's not just about wanting to launch the attack, it's also about having the capability to launch the attack. And as it stands right now, it's not clear whether it's ransomware, which means that it is usually used by cyber criminals who want to extort money. So that software, the malicious software, locks the computers and basically creates a barrier between you and your system unless you pay a certain sum. So if that is the case, then most likely it could be a cyber criminal gang which doesn't have any political motivations. If it is a state-linked actor, the Russians would have the expertise to do that. The Chinese would have the expertise to do that. Then we have the Iranians and the North Koreans. So there are many possible actors that could benefit from it, given the tense geopolitical situation. And so the problem is then to link a particular group, so conduct digital forensics, of course, and understand what has happened, and then try to look at possible clues and signatures in the code, analyze it, and see if you can link it to the group. But cyber attribution is very difficult because it's never possible to directly link one specific group to a state and say, well, that was actually state-sponsored. And it takes a lot of time if you manage to do that. And so you lose this critical time, which is a time that you would need to formulate a response. And then in a couple of years, once you find out, it's all forgotten about.
Whoever did do this, I mean, the fact is we all now know that Europe's airports aren't as secure as we may have thought they were. And you refer to our airports as being critical infrastructure. So how worried should Europeans be when it comes to potential attacks on the continent?
Well, it is certainly worrying. It doesn't mean that it's going to be replicated easily, because this is a one-trick pony, essentially. And it takes a long time to study the adversary system from the perspective of the attacker and look for a potential moment in order to launch your cyber attack using specific algorithms which might have taken years to develop. So it might be under risk, but it gives us a message, because Collins Airspace is also involved in defense. How that is going to reflect on the defense sector, that is also a crucial question that we should be asking ourselves.
Marina Miron from King's College London, always great to get your take.
Thank you.
Lukasz Olejnik is a cybersecurity consultant with King's College London. To be hacked is one thing, but how do you determine who did the hacking?
That's a question of attribution. So there are several ways you can attempt to attribute a cyber operation, cyber attack. Typically, you consider motives, intents, techniques, signatures or fingerprints of used tools, perhaps details of those tools, and of course, possibly, as I already said, policy, let's say, assessment. Sometimes it's even considered what's the geopolitical moment. That depends, of course, on the target and the way an operation is executed. So it's a multi-domain way of establishing facts. It's not really simple. It takes time.
Tell me then what you think the motive could be.
That's a pretty great question, because I have no idea, and actually no one knows. Clearly, there are several motives usually used during such campaigns, and they may be political, they may be money. If that's a typical ransomware activity, it could be cyber criminals, but sometimes cyber attacks are being masked behind purported ransomware attacks. You know, there is a pretty tense geopolitical situation in Europe now, with drones flying, fighter jets flying over, so you can't blame people to consider whether it's not just another element in the puzzle.
So, Lukasz, how secure are European airports?
That depends from airport to airport. In general, state and non-state actors indeed are targeting airports, transportation and logistics centers. That's because those are good, attractive targets for subversion, sowing chaos, but also collection of espionage information, so data. Now, clearly, as I said, that depends on the airport, but in this particular case, it seems to be a supply chain attack. So supplier is compromised or some technical glitch or incident happens on their side, and it immediately affects multiple places like several airports. So in this case, it's a single point of failure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Lukasz Olejnik, cybersecurity expert with King's College London. Thank you.
Thanks.